My humble, most reverential pranams at the lotus feet of our dearest Swami. Swami, it is with your immense grace we are able to meet here across the oceans and celebrate the 100th birthday. Thank you, Swami. Please join us and bless us so that we continue to be humble, united, and devoted. Sai Ram, everyone. Happy Ladies' Day. You can say that a little bit louder. Happy Ladies' Day. Here we are. The long wait is over. We are here to celebrate our dear Bhagwan's 100th birthday. And I'm so happy and pleased that we are going to kick off these celebrations with Sister and Dr. Lata Shri joining us all the way from Perthi in the midst of, I guess, lakhs of crowds and wonderful celebrations back home in Perthi. Dr. Lata Shri is a senior medical officer of the General Hospital in Perthi. We all know what a storied institution that is. And Dr. Lata Shri today is talking about the theme, which is about valuing our master by mastering his values. What a wonderful theme, consistent with we have been talking about. It is time to us being the message, right? That's what Swami wants us. Dr. Lata Shri is a clear embodiment of that. So serving in the General Hospital there is about serving the needy across all the villages and towns around Perthi. Manava Sevaye Madhava Seva. And sister serves in many other ways with her Bhagavad Gita classes and many other initiatives through the Satya Sai Media Center. And also talking to us, devotees around the world, and sharing the teachings of Swami. Thank you so much, Dr. Lata Shri, for being with us today. Now I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Sai Ram. Om Shri Sai Ram. Sachidananda Rupam Advaitam Sarva Bhuta Dayanidhim Ishwaramba Sutam Vande Paripurna Prema Vigraham. Offering most humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan and invoking Bhagwan's presence and benediction in this holy satsang, respected elders and my dear sisters and brothers, my loving Sai Ram to all of you, and hearty greetings from Prashanti Nilayam on the eve of this Bhagwan's Janma Shatabdi Mahotsavam, and hearty Ladies' Day greetings as well to all the wonderful ladies in Bhagwan's divine mission. And it is our exclusive privilege today being the Ladies' Day celebration. Firstly, I offer this talk at the divine lotus feet. Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Sai Ishwarar Panamastu. I am grateful to Bhagwan for this wonderful blessing of speaking in this August assembly, where I know there are long-standing devotees who have had darshan, sparshan, sambhashan with the Lord, and there are devotees who who have taken both seva and sadhana to great heights and unfathomable depths. And in fact, I am humbled to speak in this August assembly. And my grateful thanks to the coordinators of this satsang who lovingly coordinated everything, and gratitude to every one of you for having me with you and for being with me, and also the wonderful ladies from your center who are seated here in front of me. We have your own center people here as well. And gratitude to Swami for this blessing. See, we all have a unique story to tell as to how Bhagwan entered our lives, isn't it? See, here I am not telling as to how we came to Swami's fold, rather how Bhagwan enters our lives and hearts. This is what I am telling. That is because a famous devotee of Bhagwan, a Jewish devotee, Sri Aldrakar, who would conduct satsangs in Prashanti Nilayam in the 70s to overseas devotees, and an elevated soul who compiled the teachings of Bhagwan on the Bhagavad Gita, the book is called Sai Baba Gita, and you might have read this very famous book. And he is the one who once said, when someone asked in the satsang, when Bhagwan creates a ring, how many of you would go for it? And this devotee, when every hand went up, this devotee said, I will not go for the ring, I will go for the hand that creates the ring. The focus always on the creator and not this creation, which is just an appearance, which is mithya. This is an appearance of that divinity. And such a devotee once asks Swami, Swami, we know that we all love you because we feel this warmth in our heart, and that is what we are feeling even now, isn't it? So when we think of you, the warmth is there, the loving feeling is there in our hearts, Swami. But Swami, how do we know that Swami loves us? Swami very compassionately replies, see Bangaru, it is like this. None can love Swami without I loving them. It is Bhagwan who sows the seeds of love in our hearts. Only then we can even think of him and love him. So, dear brothers and sisters, even I came very late to this Bhagwan's fold, and many of you might have been with Bhagwan soon, like after Mahasamadhi. You might not have had even the single darshan of Bhagwan in physical form, but be rest assured that Bhagwan has chosen all of us, and that is our greatest privilege and blessing, an unparalleled blessing of many, many lifetimes, and that we must always remember. See, when Bhagwan entered my life, I started assiduously studying the teachings of Bhagwan. The Vahinis, the Satya Sai Speaks, especially volume 1 to 6, precious gems, and the Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Bhagwan's own story. The more and more I got exposed to Bhagwan's teachings, it struck me very strongly that though I was doing some sadhana, some scriptural study in my life, all that was only to better myself as an individual. However best I might become, the best version of myself, I am still a limited jiva, the finite individual. Whereas the goal is to break free of this finitude and realize the infinite in us. That became clear to me only because of Bhagwan's teaching. Because in every discourse, Bhagwan utters, I am God, so are you. I know it, you do not know it. You are born in order to learn how not to be born again. That is his highest teaching. And that is exactly why the avatara happens also. See, in Viveka Chudamani, a monumental work, a Prakarana Grantha, a foundational text of Vedanta, when Acharya Shankara says, Durlabham Trayamevaitat Devanugraha Hetukam Manushyatvam Mumukshutvam Mahapurusha Samshrayaha. It is only by the grace of the Lord alone that one gets this triple boon of human birth, Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, deep yearning for liberation, and Mahapurusha Samshrayaha, discipleship to an illumined master. Then just think, what is the Mahapurusha Samshraya that we have all got, isn't it? First is this Narajanma, human birth. Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. Why the human birth is so precious? Because out of 84 lakhs of species on this Mother Earth, it is only the human being who can realize the divinity because of the buddhi, the power of discrimination, who can discern between what is real and what is unreal, and so that he can realize his own true nature. And that is possible only in this human birth. See, we all know the stories of this, legendary stories of Sai Gita, Bhagwan's elephant, her devotion to Swami, isn't it? Her connection with Swami was so strong that even when Bhagwan would start from Prashanti Nilayam, she would dance with joy being in her shed, the Sai Gita shed you might have seen in Puttaparthi here. And for such a Sai Gita, once one, for all the love that Sai Gita has for me, I will reward her with a human birth in her next life. And so precious is this human birth which we have all got. Then we go to the third one, the Mahapurusha Samshraya. As I said, what more can we ask for than the Paripurna Avatara himself, isn't it? As this Mahapurusha, as our Guru. See, even if you look at the Leelas of Bhagwan, the childhood Leelas of Bhagwan, as little Satya, every little incident conveys us to the message as to why Avatara incarnates on this earth, why God comes down to our level in this human form. See, let us look at this, one of the foremost incidents. Janab Mehboob Khan was Bhagwan's teacher, and he had realized the divinity in Bhagwan when Swami was little Satya. He would go out of his way to shower love and affection on him. And such a teacher, one comes to Swami's class, and he is shocked to see Satya being given a punishment. He's standing on the bench. And he asks the previous period teacher, Sri Kondappa, why have you made Satya stand on the bench? And the teacher says, when I was dictating notes and he was busy doing something else, he was not obeying me. That's why I punished him. And then this Mehboob Khanji says, sir, your period is over. You may leave now. It is my period. And this teacher, Kondappa, sheepishly says, I'm stuck to the chair. I'm not able to get up. And this Mehboob Khanji senses there is a relation between little Satya being given punishment and this teacher being punished, being stuck to the chair. He says, first ask Satya to come down. And lo and behold, as Satya comes down, the teacher is able to get up. It is only when God comes down to earth, to our level, when he descends, we can ascend to divinity, the descent of Godhead for the ascent of mankind. And that is what Avatara is. And what is this chair with the 4 legs to which this teacher was stuck signifying? The 4 legs of the chair symbolize our own body, mind, intellect, and ego, to which we are attached all the time. This chair itself is samsara, this finite existence, the world with all its enchantments we are attached to. And it is only when God comes down to our level as Avatara to teach us, we are able to extricate ourselves from this chair of samsara. And this is the profound lesson that little Satya taught, even as a small boy, to humanity. See, there was a scholar by name Pichaya Dipala Shastri, and once he thought, I want to see how Swami looks like when he is asleep. And Swami calls him to spend the night with him the same night, and he is engaged in some conversation with Swami. Then the Shastriji himself starts feeling sleepy. Then Swami says, Shastri, you want to see me how I look like when I'm asleep, and you yourself are sleeping now. Just think, if I were to sleep, would you be waking up? This is the profound message that Swami conveyed to humanity. See, he is ever vigilant, ever alert in order to wake us up. When a student asks Swami, Swami, you say that this whole life is a dream. Does that mean you are also a part of the dream, Swami? Then Swami says, yes, with a difference. I am the lion in your dream. I have come as the lion to wake you up through my roar. And this is what he has been doing for the last 1 century, isn't it? Roaring and roaring to wake us up from where? Anadi Maya Suptaha. We are in this slumber, beginningless slumber of Maya. To wake us up, he has come down to our level. And this is the Mahapurusha Samshraya we have got. See, there are 2 incidents. There is a similar incident in both Shirdi Avatar and Satya Sai Avatar. Chand Patil of Dhupkheda in Aurangabad district, he loses his horse and Shirdi Baba helps to find him the horse. And even in Satya Sai Avatar, a Muslim gentleman in Buruvakanda, he loses his horse and he comes to Swami and Swami tells him this is where the horse is, and he finds the horse. And what does this incident signify to humanity? See, the horse is called Ashwa in Sanskrit. Shva means tomorrow, A means no. That which is not there till tomorrow, which means that which is constantly changing, constantly in motion and flux. And what is it in us that is constantly in flux? It is our own mind. Just like this horse was lost, our own mind is lost in this samsara, in this world. If we have to find this lost mind, that is possible only for the avatara. And that is what Bhagwan has been doing for us as our guru. See, once, primary school, Swami, sometimes to bless us, you raise one hand like this, one Abhaya Hasta, sometimes 2 hands. When you raise 2 hands, does that mean the blessing is more, Swami? Then Swami said, it is like this. When I raise 1 hand, it means I am urging you to practice the 5 human values. These 5 outstretched fingers, that's what they tell you. When I put up both hands like this, the 10 fingers tell you that you have to conquer the Dashendriyas, the 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas. Each and every gesture of Bhagwan conveyed a profound message to us in order to lead, like how we have to be leading our life in order to realize this goal of human life itself. We all know that Swami would take upon himself the illnesses of devotees to protect them, isn't it? There is a deeper message in this gesture of Bhagwan. When Bhagwan was confined to the wheelchair for the first time after the hip surgery, a devotee comes and asks Swami, Swami, do you have pain? Then Swami says, Noppi undi, kani suffering ledu. As long as the body is there, even when the avatar has a human body, the pain is there. Pain is inevitable as long as we have the body. But suffering is optional. It is only when we identify strongly with the body, the pain bothers us, whereas our focus should be on the spirit in us, not the matter. That is Atman, the consciousness. And this is what Bhagwan taught us through his apparent suffering during his earthly sojourn. So every act of Swami conveyed this message as to why we are here and as to how we can realize this goal of human life. Once Swami asks an elderly lady devotee, how old are you? She says, Swami, I am 6 years older to you. No, you are not 6 years older to me. No, Swami, I know your age. I know your age. I am 6 years older to you, she says. Then Swami says, the profound revelation comes. You are not 6 years older to me. You are 6 years older to this body. here is the Lord who never missed an opportunity to drive home to us the message, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you're that Atman. And this is what we must be internalizing and practicing. And this is the Mahapurusha Samshraya we have got. So if we have to make use of this discipleship, what should you be? Bhagwan himself answered once. When a student asked Swami, Swami, what is the best relationship that we can have with you? Swami said, consider me as your guru, be my steadfast disciple, then such a bond would last not only one lifetime, but many, many lifetimes to come. He will be there with us, even if it takes many janmas for us to reach that goal. And that is the Guru, the Jagat Guru that we have got. So, see, even in the Mahabharata, it is only when Arjuna surrenders to Lord Krishna in the spirit of discipleship, Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam, I take refuge in you, make me my disciple and please advise me, Nishitam Bruhi, tell me for sure I'm confused, I don't know what to do. It is then the Lord teaches him the Atma Vidya, the self-knowledge in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. See, when we have got such a guru, what should we be doing? So we come to the second point here, mumukshutvam. Moksho me bhuyat iti ichha. Let me be free. Free from where? From the cycle of birth and death itself. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. That is what mumukshutvam is. And it is our responsibility, having got the Narajanma, the human birth, the Mahapurusha Samshraya, if we must strengthen our mumukshutvam. It is very important for us because Swami himself says, I give you what you want in the beginning so that you come to me seeking what I have come to give you. That is the ultimate freedom itself. And Swami also jokes, when the Lord of the universe is in front of you to give you the highest, you come to him asking for 2 kilos of coffee powder. We should not be reduced to that state, having got this Mahapurusha Samshraya. See, of course, we are all drawn to Bhagwan through miracles. As Swami says, it is only my visiting card, Chamatkara. We cannot afford to get stuck at the level of Chamatkara. We must move to the next cars, graduate to the next car, samskar, which is self-transformation. We must be willing to be remade and unmade by the divine sculptor and subjecting ourselves willingly to the sledgehammer blows of the sculptor. That is our responsibility. Only then we can move to the next car, paropakar. Paropakara, doing good to others. Swami says the deeper meaning is para plus upa plus kara. Para divinity, upa near, kara to join. So the service you do, the seva you do must join you with Bhagwan. See, the word seva itself is sa plus eva. Sa divinity, eva like. You become like him. You become like God when you do seva. That must happen. Only then the fourth car can happen, the sakshatkar, self-realization. And that is why we must put in efforts to strengthen our mumukshutvam. See, Bhagwan says, you go to a military hotel and ask for a plate of idli. Waiter looks at you very strangely and he says, didn't you look at the board outside, which is written in bold letters, military hotel, where you get only non-vegetarian food. And going there, if we want the South Indian canteen, how does it happen, isn't it? Similarly, Swami says, the board against the world is anityam asukham lokam. A world that is impermanent, anityam asukham, full of misery. The Bhagavad Gita says, dukhalayam ashashvatam, the same meaning. So having come into this world, if you ask for everlasting happiness, peace, fulfillment, how is it that possible? That is the question of Bhagwan. So the answer is Anityam Asukham Lokam Imam prapya bhajasvamam. Having come into such a world that is impermanent, full of sorrow, bhajasvamam. Take recourse in adoring me, adoring the Lord, adoring the Avatara. See, when Jesus Christ says, none can reach God except through me, what is it that this me here? Me is the Avatara. None can reach God easily except through the Avatara. The Avatara comes for that purpose. So, to adore this Lord, Bhajasvamam, what we should be doing, Bhagwan himself clarifies. Once in a tri session, when Bhagwan was speaking to children, he asks them, boys, do you all love me? Yes, Swami, big chorus. No, you only like me, you don't love me. No, Swami, we love you. See, why I am telling you like this is that you only like me and not love me. That is because then Swami asks them again, do you have a pet dog at home? Yes, Swami. Do you feel happy when the pet is around? Yes, Swami. Do you feel sad when the pet is not there? Do you miss the pet? Yes. Do you follow the pet wherever the pet goes? No, Swami, we are busy. This is the case with so that is why I told you like me, just like you like the pet, and you don't love me. That is because when I'm around you, you're so jubilant. When I'm not here, you miss me. When I don't come for darshan even one day. And most importantly, you don't follow me, Swami said. Then came the profound statement. To love Swami is to follow Swami. To follow Swami is to practice whatever I have taught you. See, it is very important to value the master. But the best way to value the master is to master his values, practice the teachings of the master. There is no shortcut to success in this spiritual journey than practicing the teachings of the master, mastering the values of the master. See, Gita Ji is here, and Gita Ji's time, they were the blessed devotees, they would do Pada Puja to Swami. Now we all do only Paduka Puja, isn't it? We are blessed at least to do this Paduka Puja. In fact, we are more blessed, I should be saying, because what does Paduka stand for? Paduka is the platform on which our Guru stands. So, this Paduka represents the message, the ideal, the teachings, the mission that the Guru stands for. So, true Paduka Puja is to live the message of the Master. See the word Paduka, Pa means Pati, Du means Dunoti, Ka means Kashate. Pati means to protect. The Padukas of our Master, they protect us from slipping and falling in this spiritual journey. He's always there to catch us. And Dunati, to burn. He burns this avidya, kama, karma, the ignorance, desire leading to desire prompted action, fruit of action, and again punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. It burns this cycle itself, the avidya, kama, karma. Kashate means to shine forth so that our true divine nature shines forth. If this has to happen, we must live the ideal that the Guru has taught us. To walk in the footsteps of the Master, that is what we say. What does it mean? It is to live the ideal of the Master and walk the path that the Master has shown us. And that is why we must master his values. So this is what Imam Mama is. This is in this spiritual journey, what is our greatest obstacle? Let us try to analyze. See, Bhagwan gives answers for everything. This answer is also from Bhagwan. See, once Bhagwan had given several tasks to an elderly devotee. And next day, the Bhagwan goes through the checklist. This is done, this is done, this is done. When it comes to a particular task, the devotee is silent. So Swami knows this is not done. Then Swami tells, See, there are so many people here who are waiting for just one instruction from Bhagwan, and I give you so many things to do, and you come and tell me you have forgotten to do. Then that Swami says, then the devotee says, Swami, it is forgetfulness, Swami. But what to do? This forgetfulness is your Maya only, Swami. Then Swami becomes serious and Swami says, I am not Maya Swarupa, I am Jyoti Swarupa. See, our mind cannot comprehend such high words. So Swami comes down to our level and Swami goes on to say, there is the sun, there is a shadow. Don't blame the sun for the shadow. If there is a shadow, it is because something is obstructing in between, and don't blame the sun for this shadow. Similarly, don't blame the God for your forgetfulness. There is something that is obstructing in between, and that is your mind, Swami said. This is our greatest obstacle, and it is our tool as well, as we all know. And this is what we need to tackle. So, what is the nature of this mind? See, the mind is often likened to a rat. What does a rat do? The rat is active in the night, in darkness. It gathers all the tinsel and trash and keeps hoarding. And that is what our mind is also doing, isn't it? Especially in this day and age, when there is no dearth of social network sites. Through all these sites, we are even digging into others' karmas willingly. Voluntarily, we are doing this, increasing our own karma as if we do not have enough karma. And this is what the mind is constantly doing. See, we have to get up and say, Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, but it has become like this now. When we get up in the morning, Karagre Vasate Facebook, Karamadhye Twitteraha, Karamuletu WhatsApp, Prabhate Mobile Darshanam. See, we all chant three Shantis at the end of the Vedic mantras, seeking protection from three types of obstacles. Adi Daivika, from cosmic forces, Adi Bhautika, other beings, and Adhyatmika, from our own body and mind. But today, what we need is the fourth Shanti, the mobile Shanti. That is what, that is what troubles us all the time. See, when the phone is there, as if it is like we have kept our prana in our phone. That's why, like in every satsang, first they will announce, please put your phone in silent mode. Switch off the phone. Why? So that we can take the prana, which we have kept there carefully. Take that prana and put it here so that we can internalize the teachings of the satsang. So that is what is happening. See, when we were children, probably we would prefer a window seat in train or bus travel because we wanted to enjoy the outside world. But today we may not need a window seat, isn't it? We have different window in our hand. A different type of window, but nevertheless, activity is the same and more intensely involved with the world. That is what is happening to us. And there are 5 senses also to feed inputs into the mind from all these distractions. So, in this mental warfare that we have got to fight this menace, what is our greatest weapon? What is our greatest strength and tool? Bhagwan explains like this. Once, Swami asks a group of devotees, what is the rare thing on this Mother Earth? A devotee says, Swami, moksha. It is not so easy to get moksha every day. Nobody gets moksha, Swami, very rare. Then Swami says, no. A rare thing on this Mother Earth is when God comes down to earth in human form. Then Swami goes on to say, rarer than this is when you know that this is God in human form. Just think, dear brothers and sisters, there are millions even today who do not know that Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba is this Paripurna Avatara, God incarnate in human form. Then Swami said, rarest of them all is when you get an opportunity to serve that Lord, that God in human form, in his divine mission. This is our greatest strength. We are all in Bhagwan's organization celebrating the centenary celebration. in this organization here today, isn't it? So when we join Sri Satya Sai Seva organization, it is like getting admission into the world's best spiritual university. See, the Ivy League colleges, we have to write an admission test, entrance test. Here, no entrance test. Anybody is welcome. They welcome you with open arms, love and affection. And no tuition fees, no capitation fees. And the university where the chancellor of the university is the chancellor of the universe itself, isn't it? That is our greatest strength. And Bhagwan has given the curriculum also, the charter for the organization, the 9-point code of conduct, which harmonizes all the yogas that we must be practicing. The karma yoga, bhakti yoga, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, all are there in this charter. And this is our greatest strength. So that brings us to the question, why do we need the harmony of all the yogas in our day-to-day practice? See, a devotee from your center, when he comes for Sunday bhajan, he says, next week I am going to Puttaparthi and I want to take a long vacation, probably a month or two, I would be there. Then a Sai brother immediately volunteers, I have got an apartment in Puttaparthi. Why don't you go and stay there? I will give a note to the caretaker and you go and stay there. So this devotee comes with the note to this apartment when he lands in Puttaparthi and he rings the bell. See, it is a while when the door opens. And this devotee is shocked to see 3 or 4, hefty and nasty looking people who are in no mood to listen to him. He's trying to explain, this is my friend's flat and the note is there, permission from him. They get it into pieces and throw apartment. They don't even see, this is our mind. When one fine day we decide enough, I will become a serious spiritual sadhaka, I will get up in Brahma Muhurtam, I will start as I will start doing from tomorrow. To Brahma Muhurtam, I will share what Bhagwan told about Muhurtam. Swami said, the sadhana that you do throughout the day, it is like the savings bank account, the grace you get from it used for your worldly situations. When you are in trouble, that grace will protect you. Sadhana you do in, it is like account. Interest is more than savings account, and also it is a special interest, special grace, which is used exclusively for your spiritual growth. That is why we must get up and do our personal sadhana. In Brahma Muhurtam, Avatar himself has given us this tip. So this, like when we want to get up in the morning and meditate, we get up also, but the mind resists it. Like the people who had inhabited this flat, which was unoccupied for such a long time, there are these forces in the mind lurking in the corners of the mind. What are they? They are the impurities of the mind. They don't allow the thought of meditation also to enter into the mind. You cannot sit and do sadhana and focus on Bhagwan. So what are these impurities? It is called Chittamala. And what are they made up of? The Arishad Vargas. Our SSC children will easily tell Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. And the mother of this family, the Chittamala, is the selfish desire. See, even Swami told once when a student asked Swami, Swami, we know that we have to focus on unity, but the mind always runs to divinity. We see differences. We can't see the oneness, Swami. Then Swami said, that is because of Swartham Swaprayojanam. Selfishness, what is in it for me? See, that is the Chittamala. That is the selfish karma that the mind is used to, not this lifetime, from many, many lifetimes. We have lived our life like that. So if Chittamala has to be cleansed, and Chitta Shuddhi, the purity of the mind, has to be brought in so that we can do our sadhana, we need the practice of karma yoga. And the seva that we do, the service that we do is this karma yoga. It is an expression of karma yoga. And that is why Bhagwan's organization is called Sri Satya Sai Seva Organization. That's why we have the service wing in our organization. So what is this karma yoga? What is the spirit of karma yoga? Whatever I was doing so far, to satisfy this little bundle of flesh, I, me, mine, and at the most my family. Now I will do all these acts for the larger good of the world, for Loka Kalyana, for a higher goal, nobler goal, without asking what is in it for me. And I will renounce my attachment to the fruit of action. And most importantly, I will do it in the spirit of dedicated worship of Swami as an offering to Swami. I not only worship my Lord in my altar with pujas and kumkumarchana and so on, but throughout the day, with all my thoughts, words, and deeds, they are the flowers, the offering I make to Swami. That's why Swami says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, the shloka from the Bhagavad Gita, Patra. The body is the Patra that has to be offered to Swami. Hridaya Pushpa, the heart has to be offered to Bhagwan. Manophalam, the fruit of this mind must be offered. In that spirit, I will perform every action. That is karma phala. I do that is karma yoga. I do everything as naivedyam and take everything as Bhagwan's prasadam. Then there is no karma phala accrued. When everything is offered to him, given up the attachment to the fruit of action, karma phala tyaga we have done. Everything is anugraha phala. That's how a binding karma is transformed into liberating karma yoga. And it is this karma yoga that gives chitta shuddhi, because it cuts at the root of selfishness. See, when we make it a habit of offering everything to Swami, we will be purifying that thought, word, and deed, isn't it? Naturally, chitta shuddhi will come to us. So the 5 limbs of karma yoga, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, are: the first one is Swadharma Buddhi. I perform every action on the basis of dharma. It is my dharma to act in such a way, Atma Dharma, Swarupa Dharma, in accordance with my divine nature. That is the first buddhi. I act not out of mamakara, not out of attachment to the fruit of action, but out of mama dharma. Then the second buddhi is samarpana buddhi. This is my offering to the Lord, whatever I do. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhosi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Bhagavad Gita shloka. Then the third buddhi is I give up my attachment to the action also and the fruit of action. I do my best, leave the rest to him. It is called asanga buddhi, non-attachment. See, this word asanga, jita sanga, mukta sanga, sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya, that is used as many as 82 times in the Bhagavad Gita, meaning that is the crux of the art of performing action, karma yoga. When the result comes, the fourth buddhi, prasada buddhi, favorable, unfavorable, I don't grumble, because Swami knows what is best for me. Whatever happens, happens for my highest good. As Swami himself says, recognize the divine hand behind every happening. You will not grieve or exult over any situation. So that prasada buddhi will lead to the fifth buddhi, samatva buddhi, equanimity. See, about equanimity, Swami has spoken so much. In fact, Swami says, all the sadhana you do throughout the day, that is only part-time devotion to me. What is full-time devotion to Swami? Swami said, it is having equanimity. Even in the very first letter that Bhagwan wrote to his brother Sheshamaraju in the year 1947 on May 25th, Bhagwan writes, I have an expectation of my devotees. Those who are devoted to me must treat both pain and pleasure equally. The very first letter, this is what Bhagwan expects of his devotees, and this is what Karma Yoga is. And Bhagwan taught me this lesson in a very, very powerful way. See, once in our Sai Samiti, I was also an office bearer then, and I thought one of the office bearers and the chairperson, I thought they were not catering to the interest of the devotees, and somehow they were trying to push the personal agenda. And I was very much distressed. See, after all, we come to spiritual organization to forego this little I. What is puttapatti? Put apart I. To put aside this little I and the differences, we come here. And this is what is happening, Swami. So with a heavy heart, I went to sleep. And Bhagwan appeared in my dream and told me, why are you so worried? You do your duty properly and your job ends there. Is it your organization? You are suffering because of your attachment. Swami repeated twice. You're suffering because of your attachment. See, we play many a role in this cosmic drama. When we get attached to every role that we play, we lose sight of the goal. We must be in awareness of the goal all the time as to why we are here. And our duty, as Swami said, you do your duty sincerely. There ends the matter. And this is what Karma Yoga is. And Karma Yoga also has another advantage. See, a person who is full of tamoguna, that is laziness and indolence, heedlessness, one who is sleeping, let him get up, give him some service activity to do. So Karma Yoga, Seva, helps us to get rid of tamoguna as well. See, in fact, Bhagwan defined Sai Seva. What is it that makes any Seva, Sai Seva? This Swami told us to our medical superintendent, Dr. Narasimhan, in one of the interviews. Swami said, for Seva to become Sai Seva, there must be these 5 ingredients. The first one is Arogya. You must be healthy enough to perform Seva. Sharira Madhyam Kalu Dharma Sadhanam. The body has to be strong. We have to take care of it. The second one is Prarthana. You must pray to Bhagwan for an opportunity of seva. See how blessed we are all, we can all think, isn't it? Being in the organization, there are opportunities galore for us to do seva. The third one, Swami said, tapana. The yearning to help your fellow beings must come from your heart. There should not be any selfish interest in it. The genuine yearning should be there in you. The fourth one, of course, the highest teaching of Bhagwan, prema, unconditional love. A loving heart is required. Otherwise, we will be doing it probably for the sake of profit, power, or name, and so on. Or even in a lackadaisical way, when the love is not there, the prema is not there. And the fifth component, Swami said, Tyaga, selfless service. Selfless spirit should be there. The selfless sacrifice you should be capable of, which means you should be ready to come out of your comfort zone to do seva. And all these qualify as Sai Seva. And most importantly, the greatest thing that we get from seva. See, we say that what seva does to us is much more than what we do as seva. That is because Swami himself clarified once. See, during the Narayana Seva, when boys would go out to do Grama Seva during the Dasara here in Puttaparthi, Bhagwan would wait for the students to come back. And on one such occasion, Swami said, boys, do you know why I give you this little opportunities to go out and do Seva to the villages here? That is because tomorrow when you go out from here, there will be ups and downs in your life. To go through the various vicissitudes of life, you need the grace of Bhagwan. When I give you an opportunity to serve and you do the seva, that gives me an opportunity to shower my grace on you, and that will be the saving grace. That's why Bhagwan would often say, serve so that you may be saved. What is the meaning of this saving grace? this grace earned from seva that mitigates the magnitude of the negative karma that we have to go through. An example may help. See, because of our negative karma, if we have to have an accident and lose a leg in an accident, if the grace is there earned from seva, if enough grace of Bhagwan is there, then probably we may end up with a small fracture, which can be easily treated, and the leg is saved. And this is the grace of the Lord that comes from seva. See, the beautiful word for grace in Sanskrit is kripa. Kr means to do something. Pa means to get something. When you do something, when you do the right karma, the right prapti is there. And that is what grace is. And that grace comes from seva. That is the greatest advantage of seva for us. It redeems our own lives. And of course, the Chitta Shuddhi aspect we saw. And that is why we need karma yoga. But here, we should understand that not only seva, along with seva, sadhana is very important, because seva without sadhana is a bondage. When the right attitude to do seva is not there, that attitude comes from sadhana, our connection with Bhagwan. If that is not there, that will still be a binding karma, because we expect something from the recipient, and that's how it becomes a bondage. And at the same time, sadhana without seva is a burden. I will do only meditation. I'm not coming for seva. That is enough. That will not work, because the grace won't be there to mitigate our negative karma. Our karmic burden will not lessen with that. Therefore, seva without sadhana is a bondage. Sadhana without seva is a burden. Now, the next problem of the mind. Remember, we are dealing with the mind, isn't it? The rat. See, when it comes to the mind, I said it is like a rat. We must remember there is a different rat. The rat, which is the vehicle of Lord Ganesha, his name is Aninda, that rat. If we see the rat, if you look at any picture of Lord Ganesha, this Aninda is seated at the lotus feet of the master, and his vision is glued to the master. His focus is on his master. What is the reward that he gets for this focus? He gets modaka. The modaka is nothing but wisdom. Our mind must be focused on the master, just like Aninda. So what is the practice for it? So that brings us to the second problem of the mind, which is vikshepa, restlessness of the mind, wavering nature of the mind, a mind that is scattered in the world all the time. That must be collected and must be focused on Bhagwan, which means we must overcome vikshepa and get chitta ekagrata, single-pointed focus of the mind. And the method for this is Bhakti Yoga. There is no dearth of Bhakti practices in our Sai organization, isn't it? Starting from Nagar Sankirtan to bhajan singing to chanting to the meditation that we do, especially the Jyoti Dhyan, which Bhagwan himself has given us. All this is to bring Chitta Ekagrata. So in this Bhakti practice, I would like to emphasize on one practice which anyone can do, everyone can do, doesn't require any special qualification, special time, place, nothing like that. No limitations. That practice, as you all know, like the back of your hand, it is Namasmarana. Chanting the name of one God, my personal God, my Ishta Devata. See, Swami says the mind is like a mad monkey which is bitten by scorpion, which is drunk with alcohol also. What a chaos it is in our mind, we can all imagine, isn't it? So just as this monkey jumps from branch to branch and tree to tree and covers the entire forest in a trice, our mind also jumps from thought to thought. That is why when we sit for meditation, so many thoughts. That is exactly when we think all these were not there, now they are troubling me. That is the nature of the mind. So if we start chanting the name of one God, one name, mantra japa, this namasmarana, nama japa, it is like training the monkey to climb the same tree up, down, so that it doesn't run amok. Similarly, the mind focuses on one thought of divinity. From many, many, many thoughts, we have brought it to one thought. That is the greatness of Namasmarana. Namasmarana not only gives Chitta Ekagrata, it purifies the mind as well. See, just as we keep the naphthalene balls, here in India we do, I don't know, there you may not need our cupboards to protect our clothes. So to protect the mind from these Arishad Vargas, this continuous Namasmarana is like the mothballs that prevent all these troubles of the mind. And Bhagwan gives a very interesting tip to do Namasmarana. This was probably told in the 1960s when there was no television and internet, only radio was there. Swami says, in a radio program, a song is being played. The moment the song stops, Swami says, it runs, this advertisement comes on air. Immediately it comes on air and then the next song comes. Similarly, when you are involved in some work, you are absorbed in the work. The moment that work stops, before you take up the next work, the mind must run to this Namasmarana mode. The mind must start chanting the name of God. That is how you must do Namasmarana. This is called Nirantara Namasmarana, which we can all do. And this is a wonderful tip given by Bhagwan. See, this Namasmarana is a 24/7 hotline to Swami, isn't it? We all know Gali Sharada Devi, Pedabatu Amma. She was blessed to be in both Shirdi Avatar and Satyasai Avatar, who would sleep in the veranda outside Swami's room. And one day, before going to sleep, she says, Sai Rama. And Swami opens the door and says, hey, why did you call me? Swami says, I didn't call you, Swami. I just said Sai Rama. The moment you utter my name, it is like beckoning me to you. And that is the greatness of Namasmarana. See, when there was division of property between Nara and Narayana, Narayana, the god, says, I will keep the form with me. I will give you my name. He says this to man, Narayana. So the form is with Narayana, but the name is given to Nara, the man, which means there is no difference between the form of the Lord and the name of the Lord. This is called Nama Nami Abheda. In fact, the name is more powerful, we can say, than the form, because, see, the avatar also has come and gone. The form has disappeared. The form may go away one day, but the name will stay forever. And that is the power of the name of the Lord, which gives both Chitta Shuddhi and Chitta Ekagrata. But when it comes to bhakti practices, there is a caution. Once a lady comes to Swami and says, Swami, I'm writing Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. Hundreds of books I have finished, Swami. Every day I finish a book. Then Swami said, aha, your handwriting would have improved. That's all. Which means any bhakti practice should not be reduced to a mundane mechanical practice. It must be done with awareness. Gita ji once told Baba is, be aware, be alert. Be aware of why you are doing that spiritual sadhana. Be alert to the pitfalls in this spiritual sadhana. And we should not get reduced. Our practice should not get reduced to that. And there has to be consistency in the practice. 2 days I meditate, third day I am realized just enough. No, that will not work. The mind is a great trickster. It will trick us in many ways. Today, some guests have come home. You throw your meditation out of the window. First thing to be thrown out of the window is sadhana. This happens to me all the time. That's why I am sharing this. But the mind is a slave of repetition. Whatever we train the mind with, the mind gets hooked onto that. That is why we must do our personal sadhana every day. Day after day, without giving any excuse, preferably at the same time and in the same place. That has its own benefits. And this is called practice, abhyasa. Once a teacher from Swami's institution asked Swami, Swami, you say love all, serve all. It is so difficult, Swami. Even in our family, we can't do this, Swami. Then Swami asked him, how long did it take for you to take the toddler step? Swami, 2 years. And how long did it take for you to learn the alphabets? Swami, maybe 4 years, 5 years. And how many years did you take to get your university degree? 20 years, Swami. See, for such a worldly achievement, you have to put in so much efforts for so many years. And here you want the highest spiritual reward. Just think how much more efforts you must be putting in for how many more years. So the answer to your question is, you said you can't do it. I am giving you the answer. It is practice, practice, practice. Abhyasa. Spirituality is also a conscious practice. Swami said, if you start practicing today, you will be there one day. If you do not start at all, you will never reach there. And the compassionate Lord that he added, see, Bangaru, in this journey, I am with you. I will hold your hand and walk. But we ourselves have to put in the self-effort. And this self-effort is called Purushartha. See, we need three things. At the level of the intellect, the clarity of goal, the first C. At the level of the mind, commitment to the goal, the second C. At the level of the body, consistent application of action or Purushartha in the right direction to succeed in our spiritual journey. Of course, the grace is important, but the effort is ours. So there has to be awareness, there has to be consistency. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna lists the four problems of the mind, when he says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramathi balavadhridam. Chanchala pramathi, restless, impulsive, turbulent mind. Balavadhridam, it is strong in its attachment to the world and obstinate. For the first two problems, abhyasa is necessary. For the next two problems, a mind that is strongly attached to the world, the obstinate mind, we need vairagya. The Lord says, abhyasena tu kaunteya, vairagyena cha grihyate. Vairagya, dispassion, detachment. It is called viraga, vita raga, without attachment. How do we get this detachment? Bhagwan gives the solution. The more you attach yourself to God, the detachment to the world increases. Deep attachment to God is detachment to the world. See, I'm a lover of coffee. And you give me a gulab jamun. And after that, if you give me a cup of coffee, even if you put 10 spoons of sugar, the coffee tastes bitter for me, isn't it? I may not relish it. Similarly, when we taste the highest in our life, that is love of Bhagwan, this world is like the bitter coffee. It takes a second back seat for us. That is why Daiva Priti, love for Swami, the more we attach to Bhagwan, the more the detachment for the world, Vairagya, comes. So I said Viraga, Vitaraga, without attachment. Viraga is also Vishesha Raga, special attachment to Bhagwan. Raga for the world must be transformed into Anuraga for Bhagwan. That should come from our bhakti practice. So we have to bring in intensity in our practice. That is very, very important. See, Bhagwan says, bhakti is not like a uniform which you wear on some days. Some days you don't wear the uniform on Sundays and public holidays. No, bhakti is a full-time occupation. So whatever we do throughout the day, we must connect it to the thought of Bhagwan, divinize every mundane action. So for this, Swami says, to bring the bhava, namasmarana helps. You are constantly thinking of him. And do all work as my work, Swami says. Everything is Swami's work. There is no difference between household chores, Sai Samiti Seva, or my professional duties and responsibilities. The third one is offer everything to me. Then naturally the intensity, the bhava comes in our spiritual practice. And now the third problem of the mind. Okay, the mind is purified now through bhakti, through karma yoga. The mind is unified through bhakti yoga. Then what else is there for the mind to tackle? It is avarana, the veiling of the truth. The truth that we are Atman, consciousness. We do not know who we truly are. And that has to be unveiled. And what is the prescribed method? Jnana Marga, the path of wisdom, where there are 3 steps. This is who am I inquiry. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana, systematically study the teachings of Bhagwan. That is why Bhagwan has given us the study circle every fortnight, every Samiti, at least in our Sai Samiti, it used to be like that. Attendance for study circle is not even 1/3 the attendance for bhajan. That will not work. Study circle, where you sit and study and come, and where you even do manana, you reflect upon the teachings of Bhagwan with all your Samiti members, with the fellow pilgrims to the lotus feet. And that manana removes all the doubts in us, gives us the conviction to practice the teachings. Then nididhyasana, to live our life in the light of Bhagwan's teachings, so that it becomes a living reality for us. So that the tendencies, the contrary tendencies, it's called viparita bhavana, the tendency that I'm the body, I'm the mind, that is removed when we constantly contemplate upon the truth. I'm not the body, I am not the mind, I am this Atman. That is called nididhyasana. This dehabhimana has to go away. Otherwise, whatever sadhana, seva that we do, that will become only just an intellectual gymnastics or a rhetorical, this acrobatics. That's all. If this little I doesn't leave us. See, we all know that Bhagwan had installed the radio Sai set. Initially, it was the World Space Radio, and Bhagwan had installed a set in Yajur Mandir. And once a question and answer session was going on, and a devotee had asked the question, do atheists get moksha? Then Bhagwan's servitor asked this question to Swami. Swami, what is the answer for this question? And Swami says, anybody who gets rid of this dehabhimana, he will be liberated. So that should go away, and that comes from Jnana Marga. That is why everything has to be practiced. All the paths are very important for us. See, we say that Jnana is the direct flight to divinity, but to board the flight in that, to come and board this flight, we need the other modes of transport, isn't it? Whether a road or whatever, we the flight to board the flight. All are equally important. If Chitta Shuddhi is not there, we can never progress. There are the stories of the demons. Even they would do tapas and propitiate Bholanath, Lord Shiva, and get the boons. And their boons were used for only destruction of the world, isn't it? Because Chitta Shuddhi is not there. Chitta Shuddhi is there only, we can reach the goal of human life, the primary sadhana. That's why Bhagwan's emphasis on seva. And the attitude to do right seva comes from sadhana. That's why the 9-point code of conduct and all these things are given to us, Bhagwan, in the form of a comprehensive program, isn't it? That is our greatest fortune. See, all the three paths are essential because we are capable of action. We must do karma yoga. We have the buddhi capable of thinking. Jnana yoga is equally possible for us. We have an affective, emotional component, the heart. The emotions have to be purified. We need bhakti. So all the things have to be simultaneously practiced. So the harmony of yogas is this unique approach that Bhagwan has given us in the organization. I think I have spoken enough. Probably I will conclude with a couple of anecdotes and I'm done. See, this picture, I request Sister Lipika ji to project the slide I have shared. Sairam, Sister Lipika. Yeah. See, this incident I had read in Sanatana Sarathi long ago, and it had made such an impact in my mind's eye, and I would visualize it in my mind. I had not seen this photo. This is a photo which was materialized by Bhagwan to the 1988-1990 batch of MBA students, a copy of this black and white photo, same copy to each and every student Bhagwan materialized. See, if you see the caption, take a moment, remind yourself, he speaks and he listens. I had not seen this photo, but the message was so profound. And here he says, he speaks, he listens. Then Swami said, when you are talking to somebody or interacting with somebody, it is Swami who is speaking. And the other person who's listening to you, interacting with you, he is also Swami. If you live in this awareness, then what happens is you will be Swami one day. Then, looking at the puzzled expression of a student, Swami said, I know what is running through your head. You are thinking, Swami in me is good. But what happens if the other Swami becomes bad? What am I supposed to do? Swami said, don't worry. Even if the other Swami becomes bad, you retain your goodness. See, we all want to look good. We all want to feel good, especially the modern generation, isn't it? That's what they say, the youngsters. But both looking good and feeling good must be anchored in being good. That is very important for us. This reminds me of a Chinnakatha of Bhagwan. See, the beauty of Bhagwan's teachings is that the highest nuances of Vedanta, he simplifies in the form of parables, Chinnakathas, and so many examples and analogies, isn't it? Swami says, a drunken man, one night he decides he wants to row the boat to reach the other side of the boat, other side of the river. Then what happens is he starts rowing the boat. Swami says, with all his might, rowing through the night, next day morning he finds the boat has not moved an inch. What is the reason? Because he had forgotten to untie the boat and raise the sail. See, whatever seva sadhana that we do, if we forget to raise the sail, what is the sail? As Swami said, you be the good Swami always. You retain the goodness. If that is not there, in our spiritual journey, we will not reach anywhere. And also, there is another lesson from this picture, which I will come to it later. So that brings us to another sadhana that we have to practice. See, we have seen seva, sadhana, everything is yes, yes, yes. Sri Satya Sai. Seva, sadhana, satsang, swadhyaya, silence, everything. Another very important sadhana is self-introspection. Where was my awareness throughout the day? Was it on the goal or did it deviate? That is very, very important. Here I want to share a personal anecdote. In our Sai Samiti, once I was supposed to speak on the topic, the message of the Bhagavad Gita in the light of Bhagwan's teachings. And that afternoon, somehow I developed high fever and throat pain, and I went to sleep, popped up a pill. And Bhagwan appeared in my dream and asked, what is the topic you are speaking on today? I said, this is the topic, Swami. I want to speak on love all, serve all, adveshta sarvabhutanam and sarvabhuta hite rataha from the Bhagavad Gita. Then Swami said, what is the fight you had yesterday, the previous day? My doctor colleagues regarding some administrative matter. And it was like a bitter fight with temperature and voices going high. And Swami was obviously referring to that incident. And I kept quiet. Then Swami said, you can make your point, but no ill feelings. No ill feelings. See, here I was talking on such a profound topic, teaching of Bhagwan, love all, serve all, and behaving exactly in a contrary way in my personal life. This is the self-introspection. The dream ended. I got up and I was absolutely fine for the talk. And a powerful lesson dawned on me that day. Self-introspection. Am I practicing what I am telling? As Swami says, an ounce of practice is better than tons of precept. See, when a devotee asks Swami about all this spiritual sadhana and spiritual progress, in fact, Swami says, your spiritual progress is not measured by the bank balance you have or the type of car you drive. It is measured by the unconditional love, the amount of love that you can give to your fellow beings and the amount of selfless seva you are able to do. Then the devotee says, Swami, it is only theory, Swami, not possible. Swami says, not possible because of two things, two F's, Swami says. One is forgetfulness, other one is fearfulness. You forget that the Swami is watching over you. So that's why I always say Swami is not only omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, he's omnivigilant. Those two watchful eyes on us all the time, isn't it? See, when a devotee asks Swami, are all like the Duryodhana in the Mahabharata. Janami dharmam nachame pravrittihi, janami adharmam nachame nivrittihi. See this, I know what is dharma, I can't follow it, I can't, stop myself from following this unrighteousness. Swami said, and this devotee said, we are all like that, Swami, we keep doing the same mistakes again and again. This is what we do, isn't it? If we are brutally honest with ourselves, we accept. Then Swami said, that is because you forget the omnipresence of Bhagwan. You forget that Swami knows everything and he is seeing all these things. See, this incident happened in the 1960s in Puttaparthi when there was no camera. A devotee had brought a very good camera and everybody makes a big to be photographed with Swami. And nobody is ready to click the photo because they don't want to lose the opportunity. Then Swami says, I myself will click the photo. But it's an anticlimax. Everybody wants photo with Swami. But okay, anyway, the photo is there and Swami clicks the photo. When the photo is developed, Bhagwan is majestically seated in the throne. See, dear brothers and sisters, we all keep a throne for Swami, definitely in our Sai Samiti and in our homes also, probably. And no seat is empty, including the seat that is there in our heart. Bhagwan is seated there. If we live in this awareness, our behavior would be exemplary, isn't it? We would be refraining from all those undesirable things which we would otherwise be indulging in. So that is why this self-introspection. Am I on the right path all the time? The self-introspection is there. Even if we slip and fall, we are back on the track and a mighty fall in our spiritual journey is prevented. That's why journaling, maintaining a spiritual diary also helps in this direction. Then the second F, Swami said, it is fearfulness. What are we afraid of? Swami said, you are afraid of losing your ego, the little I am Mr. So-and-so, I did this, I did that. See, even when we come to Sai Samiti, these subtle vasanas are so deep-rooted in us. I want to grow in the Samiti itself in terms of position. We may not accept some subtle vasanas. Even while doing seva, at least that person must thank me. These are the vasanas. We are not able to lose this, not willing to lose this little I. We are afraid of this. And that we should get rid of. See, Bhagwan told a very interesting, incident in this regard. Swami told the student once, when Sai Gita was a little elephant, she would be tied near the Gopuram gate in the ashram to a peg with a chain or a rope. And she thought that she cannot break free of the chain because she doesn't have the strength. She's a baby elephant. But Swami said, even when she grew up, when she had the might and strength of a big elephant, she never attempted to break free of this chain because she was so heavily conditioned to this notion that I cannot do it. This is your predicament also. You are so heavily conditioned to the fact, I am this body, I am this mind. This is how we have lived our life as. And when God comes as your guru and tells, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you cannot even think of it. Such heavy is the conditioning. And if we have to get out of this conditioning, it is very important to do all these sadhanas and pray for the grace of Bhagwan. Pray for unflinching faith in Swami, implicit obedience to Swami, and acceptance of the will of Bhagwan, and surrender to his lotus feet. What is surrender? Swami said, I am sir, you are under. That should be our attitude. See, when I said Dehabhimana, when I went to the Sai organization for bhajan session for the first time, a lady devotee, that time I don't know sisters and all that, she called me sister. See, I'm a doctor by profession. In our profession, we call nurses as sisters, isn't it? Then I was taken aback. I wanted to tell, I'm not a sister, I'm a doctor. But, I just kept quiet, and later I realized the Sai sisters, see, such strong is our body identification. The moment somebody, who are you? This is our identity. If that has to go, There is no other recourse, for us than practicing the teachings of Bhagwan. And that's why self-introspection is so essential. And now coming back to that photo, he thinks, he listens. The greatest message, the highest message of Advaita Vedanta is there in us. The oneness of existence. The one who listens is Swami. One who speaks is Swami. Everything is Swami. Everyone is Swami. Swami would say, Parulu, Parulu Kadaya, Paramatmude. There is no para the other. Everyone is Paramatma. In every Padartha, what you find is this Paramartha, the highest principle of divinity. And this is what Bhagwan taught us in and through his teachings. And that is why I would say this centenary celebration, this Janma Shatabdi Mahotsavam, let us all sing a different song for Swami. I was never born, I am not born, I will never be born, Aham Brahmasmi. That should be the sadhana that we must be practicing, and that comes from Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and tackling this mind using the teachings of Bhagwan. Poet Sylvia Plath once said, once one has seen God, what is the remedy? The poet writes, see, dear brothers and sisters, we have all seen God. Even those who have come to Bhagwan later, post Mahasamadhi, their hearts are touched by Bhagwan. That's why they are in the organization here today, isn't it? Ayam me hasto Bhagavan, ayam me Bhagavattaraha. This hand of mine that has touched yours is blessed indeed. That is our blessing. So, when we have all seen God, what is remedy? The poet writes, to be God. With deepest sense of gratitude, I thank Bhagwan for this wonderful blessing of dwelling upon the teachings of Bhagwan, which are Sanatana, eternal, which is Nitya Nutana, so evergreen. See, the Atharva Veda puts it so beautifully in this mantra. Pashya devasya kavyam na mamara na jiryati. Look at the poetry of the Lord, which neither ends nor ages. And that is what Bhagwan's teaching is. And that is what the values he has taught us. And I also pray to Bhagwan on behalf of all of us to bless us in such a way that instead of rowing our little boats of samsara ourselves, let us get into this huge steamer, the ship that Avatara is. And what is the ticket? The ticket is practice of Bhagwan's teachings, so that all of us are at once ferried across this ocean of samsara to the shore from where there is no return. Tameva sharanam gacha, sarva bhavena bharata, tat prasadat param shantim, sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. With all your being, take refuge in him and him and him alone. With his grace, you will attain to the supreme peace and the eternal abode. Kayena vacha manasendriyairva buddhyatmanava prakrite svabhavat karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai sai narayanaayeti samarpayami. Harihi om tatsat Shri Saishwarar Panamastu. I have no words to thank all of you for this collective sadhana of manana, what we have done today, reflection of Bhagwan's teachings. And my sincere thanks to our Sri Satya Sai General Hospital team here, which have set up all these arrangements for me here. And I'm grateful to every one of you for your time and patience, and especially thank the organizers of Satsang and Geeta ji, who has been instrumental for me being here today with all these wonderful devotees. Thank you very much. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. What a wonderful journey through teachings of Bhagwan, Bhagavad Gita, and all the practical tips so that we value the master by mastering the values. Dr. Lata Shri, you are our dear sister. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yes, we should thank the General Hospital friends around there who made this connection across the oceans almost seamless. Thank you very much. So maybe we have time for a couple of questions here in the room. We see our play team standing there. Anyone? Couple of questions. Pawan, come on. Pawan has always the answers, but today.
Sairam, Dr. Lata Garu. First, I would like to basically say a couple of words here. I think it is Swami's infinite grace. I always say we are unable to be in physical presence in Prashant Nilayam, but the current committee, Suri, Kiran, Lipika ji, Amit and Ramesh made this Prashant Nilayam for us in the Hindu temple. A round of applause to the community, please. That is number one. In your talk, the two things that really caught me was Karma Yoga. Like you do your work and rest Swami will take care of it. And the other thing is whatever is happening is his pure will. So as you said, I will only say you as a doctor, I want an incident in entire career where you thought the patient was tough patient, you could not cure or whatever it is, and you had a Swami intervention to guide you to take care of that particular scenario. If you can basically address that, we would really love it. Thank you.
Sairam, thank you for your question. I like beginning of everything, I offer the task itself to Swami. And whatever happens during the course, I just don't think at all whether it should happen this way or that way. I take everything as Swami's will. And especially in this general hospital, I would say, which has touched me the most, there was a patient called Narasamma. She was an old lady, and Narsimhaji we used to call her. And that lady was a CKD patient, and she was being treated in Anantapur hospital. She would undergo dialysis for some of her medicines and blood transfusion, or sometimes she would come to our hospital. And that she was a lonely lady. She had lost her husband and children in a very tragic way. And somehow whenever I saw her, I would pray, she is CKD and there will be so much suffering for her. And also it is in advanced stage, her disease, and she is alone. And the only prayer I used to make to Swami whenever I saw her was, Swami, she should not suffer, whatever be the intensity of illness that she is going through. And one day, one of her neighbors came and told me that Narsimhaji passed away in her sleep. She had just undergone dialysis and come home, and she did not suffer at all. And even when she used to have this dialysis, she would be cheerful. Somehow the pain was not there. The difficulty, suffering was not at all there for her. This was my constant prayer to Swami. She must have anayasa maranam. Whatever may be the disease, she should not suffer, Swami. And that has touched me the most when this, her neighbor came and told me, very peacefully in her sleep, she passed away. And I know, if we selflessly pray to Swami for whatever it is, whatever may be the cause, if the intention is pure and selfless, and I don't want, there is not, is there anything for me in this? If the thought is removed, I think such prayers are always answered, especially for Kalyana, for others. And that should be our prayer, I think. Even in our profession, when we are treating, whatever is best should happen to the patient. But if we can make such intentions, I think that will fructify. This taught me a great lesson as to how to pray and what to pray for in life. So this is what I want to share, brother.
Wonderful.
Sairam.
really shows spirituality in action. So this is after all a ladies' day. Can we end with one question from the ladies' side? Oh, men are competing. Come on, please.
Sairam, Doctor, the question I have for you is, you mentioned about that incident that you were going to
Sairam
talk.
is our own Seva doctor. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Dr. Shiva.
Yes.
Dr. Shiva, no?
Yes,
Yeah,
very much.
he's our Seva doctor,
Thank
dental
you.
surgeon who comes here.
I
So
know.
nice to see you, sir, Sairam.
Same here, so nice to see you too. The question I have for you is, you mentioned about the talk you were going to give on the love all, serve all, and how Swami chided you about your conversation. I think it was with your daughter. Over the years, how has that progressed? Are those conversations with your daughter become more sweeter? Sairam, that's my question to you.
Yeah. That has given me, more, that I should invest more time in self-introspection and that, I must be very vigilant. That has brought me mindfulness and being conscious of what I do, what I should not be doing. And that self-introspection has increased from that day. Like it was a slap on my cheek. And really, it was so powerful. And from that day onwards, I have been more conscious of what I'm speaking or what I'm doing. I won't say I am there, but I have learned to take toddler steps with Bhagwan's teachings and Bhagwan's person in this direction. That's what I can tell. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We enjoyed your fluency and how just the words flowed through you. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much.
We are only instruments in this.
Thank you, Siva, for asking that question. We all have lessons in that. Yeah, certainly.
Sairam, Doctor. I just have one question.
Sairam, sister.
You talked about the best thing that we can do is Namasmarna. So, I mean, in a practical purpose, like we can't just go saying Sairam the entire day throughout our professional and personal life. So, how can we practically do this, or how can we always keep Swami's name with us? Especially in difficult times, we will be saying Sairam, but even in the positive times or in good times, how can we keep Swami's name with us, or how can we keep repeating Swami's name? Because I don't know, like it looks weird for us to be just saying Sairam the entire day. So how can we do this in a practical way?
Sairam, sister, the question, especially the first part of the question, was not clear at all. Would you mind repeating the question again?
Yeah,
The last part we tell keep Sairam, that's what I understood. The first part, what you said, was not clear to me at all, sister.
I just said, Namasmarna is very important and it's the best way to be connected to Swami. But how can we do this in a practical way, like continuously telling Swami's name?
Swami.
Sairam, I think she wants to tell that in both in good times and bad times, how can you remember Swami? Like when we are in bad times, we remember Swami easily, right? But in good times also, I mean, so that it will not be mechanical. That part I think she wants to address. Yeah, please.
Both in good times and bad times.
Yeah.
That is the question, isn't it?
Yes.
That is why, the first important thing for a seeker and the easiest thing would be, to practice is prasada buddhi. Whatever happens, take it as his prasadam. Then the good times and bad times, everything is his prasadam. That Swami knows what is best for us, and whatever happens for my highest good. That is a very preliminary sadhana that we can all practice. Whatever comes to our life, accept it. See, there are three things, three approaches we can use. When something, unfavorable happens, something untoward happens especially, we should bring in the theory of karma. If I am going through some suffering today, it is something, the effect of my own negative karma. That awareness should come. Only then we accept. Otherwise, we keep on blaming everybody, including God, except ourselves. We take it as a bad time, and that is why we are not able to connect to Swami. We accept it that nothing comes to me undeserved. It is my own making. Then, number two, having accepted it, how do you go through it? Through our bhakti to Swami, through our devotion to Swami. In this journey, Swami is with me. He has assured me, Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. He knows what is best for me. He will sail me through. He is with me. That is a matter of great strength for us, that Bhagwan is with us. That's why chant his name at that time more and more. Can do other spiritual practices. But that time, the mind will not do all those things. At least the simplest thing would be to chant his name. Even if you start chanting mechanically, that doesn't matter, but chant the name. The awareness will come. So the second is, Swami is with me, and with Swami, I will go through this. There is no problem. Everything will be taken care. That reassurance, the feeling of reassurance. The third one is the Jnana approach, which is Agama Apayino Anityaha. Everything is impermanent. As Swami says, passing clouds, it comes and goes. Whatever comes, that goes. I have to be just patient, that's all. This too shall pass. And Swami says, hold on to the clutch of faith. As Swami says, when you are traveling in a car, like when you go through rough roads, you have to change the gear, isn't it? So to change the gear frequently, to make the transition smooth, you hold on to the clutch. Swami says, the clutch of the car. Similarly, when you are going through the rough roads of your life, various vicissitudes, hold on to the clutch of faith that Bhagwan is with me. With him, everything, with Bhagwan with me, everything will be all right. Have that faith all the time. See, Faith, faith. Face anything by trusting him, in trusting him, Faith. Faith anything in trusting him. That is what faith is. Hold on to the clutch of faith, especially in the bad times. And this too shall pass. Whatever comes, that goes away. Everything is impermanent. That is the Jnana approach. So bring karma, bhakti, jnana, all the three approaches together, you will be peaceful. Prasada buddhi. Everything is his prasada. The Bhagavad Gita says, Prasade sarva dukkhanam hani rasyopajayate. All the suffering ends when you have this prasada buddhi in you, this acceptance attitude, loving acceptance of the will of God. Sai Ram.
Very wonderful. Thank you, sister.
Thank you
Does
so
that
much.
answer your question, sister?
Yeah, I think it came very well. I think we love your faith explanation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. It really gave a good inspiration.
Sai Ram, thank you so much, Dr. Latashri. We know that a lot is going on
Sai
in
Ram.
Bhakti, and you making time and spending time with us in spite of everything that's happening there. Truly, truly, we appreciate it. And our congregation is here, is extremely happy that you spend the time with us with your wonderful talk. Now, we are fortunate that some of our center members are physically there, right, with sister. So, I am requesting Tara Vishwanathan to give a memento, a token of our love for Dr. Latashri.
Come at the back.
There you go. Thank you, thank you. I have to thank Tara also for making this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so.
So one of these days, Doctor, please come over to the United States and come visit us in person. Until then, thank you once again.
Whatever Swami. Yeah.
Yes. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, sir. Sai Ram.